When a lonely little girl asks a cold-hearted CEO to be her dad for a day, no one expects it to change his life forever. Wesley Grant didn't belong in an elementary school hallway. He stood out like a polished diamond in a sandbox, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair neatly combed and a leather briefcase still in his grip. He had come to drop off a donation check, routine PR nonsense. But then a small voice stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, can you be my dad today?" He looked down. A little girl with curly brown hair, warm cocoa-toned skin and 2 front teeth missing blinked up at him with eyes far too hopeful. She wore a unicorn sweater a size too big, a pink tutu, and glittery sneakers that lit up when she moved. "I need someone for Dad Day," she added, whispering. Just for an hour. Wesley should have said no. He had meetings, mergers, a billion-dollar company waiting. But something about her tiny hands clasped together, her hopeful grin made him nod. "Okay," he said. And just like that, the ice around his life cracked. Behind the shimmering glass tower of Grant Enterprises was a man frozen in time. Wesley Grant, 47, hadn't celebrated a birthday in years, not his own, not anyone else's. Since the car crash that stole his wife and young son, his life had become a loop of sterile routines and soulless achievements. He'd once been known for charisma and ambition. Now his nickname in the office was The Machine. Unfeeling, efficient, impeccably dressed, perfectly on time, always polite, but unreachable. He lived in a penthouse with cold marble floors, no photos on the walls, and silence thick enough to choke a man. But that night after meeting Lily, something shifted. He found himself remembering his son's laugh, his wife's hand in his, the lullabies that used to echo down their hallway. And then he remembered the look on Lily's face when he read the class story aloud. Like she belonged, like he belonged. He sat on his sleek leather couch and stared at nothing, that one question echoing in his mind. Why had he said yes? Hannah Parker had built a fortress around her heart with single motherhood and late-night nursing shifts. At 34, she was too tired for romance, too practical for fairy tales. Life had taught her not to expect help, not from strangers, not from men in suits. So when she saw Wesley Grant holding Lily's hand after school, a wave of alarm crashed through her. She approached him outside the school gates. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair pulled back into a tired bun, and her hazel eyes scanned his face sharply. "I appreciate what you did," she said. "But we're fine. We don't need anything." Wesley, caught off guard by her bluntness, simply nodded. He didn't argue. He never had to. But Lily clung to his hand and whispered, "He's nice, Mama. He helped me with glue sticks." Hannah softened just slightly. She looked at him again, really looked. Behind the polished appearance was something else, loneliness. And though she would never say it aloud, she recognized it. It was the same shadow that haunted her in the mirror. She let him walk Lily to the car, just once, but the door had cracked open. Wesley should have said no when the teacher called for volunteers. He had meetings and shareholders breathing down his neck. But when Lily called his office line, begging him to come to the zoo, he said yes before he could stop himself. He arrived overdressed as usual, in a navy sports coat, polished loafers, and a Bluetooth still in his ear. But within 30 minutes, Lily had convinced him to hold a banana for the monkeys, buy cotton candy, and take selfies with a giraffe. She rode on his shoulders half the day, giggling. Other kids began to call him Lily's dad. He corrected them at first, then stopped trying. Hannah, watching from a distance, noticed the way he leaned in when Lily spoke. The way he laughed, unpolished, real, and completely unlike the man from the news headlines. She found herself wondering if maybe there was more to Wesley Grant than the suit and the money. Maybe, beneath the ice, there was still someone warm. That field trip wasn't just a school outing. It was the beginning of something neither of them had expected. It wasn't a date. It was coffee, a thank you, nothing more. That's what Hannah told herself when she invited Wesley over. He arrived at her modest home in a quiet neighborhood with a bouquet of wildflowers and a nervous smile. His cologne smelled faintly like cedar and rain. They sat on the porch while Lily napped inside, sipping lukewarm coffee from mismatched mugs. Wesley loosened his tie. Hannah tucked a blanket around her legs. It was awkward at first, two strangers sharing space, but slowly the walls came down. He told her about the accident, about the silence that followed, the way he built his company higher and higher so he wouldn't feel the emptiness at the bottom. Hannah listened, arms folded. Her eyes didn't pity, just understood. "I know what that kind of silence feels like," she said, barely above a whisper. She didn't offer solutions. She didn't tell him it would get better. She just listened, and that, for Wesley, was enough. When he left that evening, she watched his car disappear into the street and felt something she hadn't in years: hope. When Lily's 8th birthday rolled around, all she wanted was cake, balloons, and Wesley. "Mama, can Mr. Wesley come?" she asked for the 3rd time in a week, her eyes wide with hope. Hannah hesitated. She wasn't sure if inviting Wesley was crossing a line. But Lily insisted, and deep down Hannah realized her daughter had grown attached. Wesley arrived with a large box wrapped in gold foil. Inside was an old-fashioned record player and a vinyl of lullabies. "My mother played these for me," he said softly. Lily's face lit up and she hugged him so tightly his briefcase dropped to the floor. The backyard was full of screaming kids, balloons that refused to stay tied down, and dogs begging for scraps. Wesley stayed through it all, passing out plates, refilling juice, and even joining a round of musical chairs. At one point he and Hannah locked eyes as Lily danced under the fluttering streamers. He smiled shyly. It was the first birthday in years where Lily blew out candles surrounded by laughter and love. Later, as Hannah washed dishes and Wesley dried them beside her, she whispered, "You didn't have to bring all that." He looked at her, eyes soft. "But I wanted to." Lily had always imagined Wesley's office would look like something out of a superhero movie. "Does your chair spin? Do you have a secret button?" she asked as she bounced beside him in the elevator. Wesley, amused, opened the door to reveal a sleek, cold space. Marble floors, glass walls, and furniture too expensive to touch. But Lily wasn't impressed. She immediately ran to his massive whiteboard and began drawing stick figures. "This is you, this is Mama, and this is me," she declared, her pink marker squeaking across the surface. "We're eating pancakes." His assistant gawked from the doorway. Wesley only smiled. He canceled his meetings and gave Lily a tour. She renamed every employee, sat in his chair with her feet dangling, and asked if she could bring her friends next time. When she finally left with Hannah, she handed him her drawing, a crooked family beneath a rainbow. He stared at it long after they'd gone, her voice echoing in his mind. "You look happier when you're with us." For the first time in years he left work early, just to feel that again. It didn't take long for whispers to spread across the top floors of Grant Enterprises. "Have you noticed the boss is smiling more?" one executive whispered. He rescheduled a board meeting for a school play. Wesley wasn't oblivious. The rumors swirled, some amused, others skeptical. Investors called it a distraction. His VP warned, "Sentimentality can hurt the bottom line." But Wesley didn't care. He was showing up at Lily's soccer games, helping with bake sales, even learning how to braid, poorly. He was no longer the cold CEO who barked orders from behind a mahogany desk. He was changing. Meanwhile, Hannah remained cautious. She watched him adapt to this new life one clumsy step at a time. She saw how he comforted Lily when she scraped her knee, how he waited at parent meetings nervously checking his notes. Still, she kept her heart guarded. Change was easy, staying was hard. But deep inside, something stirred, a question she didn't dare voice yet: could he really stay? Hannah had always pushed through exhaustion. Between nursing shifts, bills, and raising Lily, she had no time for rest. But one cold morning her body finally gave out. She collapsed at the hospital, pale and burning with fever. Wesley was in the middle of a video conference when Lily called, sobbing into the phone. "Mr. Wesley, Mama won't wake up." He left immediately. At the hospital, he stayed by Hannah's bedside for 3 nights. He brought soup, adjusted her pillows, and held Lily when she cried herself to sleep in the chair. Wesley saw Hannah in a new light, not just as Lily's mom, but as a woman worn thin by the weight of surviving alone. When she finally woke, her voice was weak. "You didn't have to come," she rasped. But he did, not for obligation, not for appearances. Because he needed her to be okay. Because, for the first time since his own family's loss, he realized he couldn't bear to lose again. And Hannah, through her fevered haze, began to understand. He wasn't just visiting her life anymore. He was becoming part of it. Peace doesn't last when past wounds come knocking. A month after Hannah's recovery, her late husband's parents suddenly filed for custody of Lily. They claimed Hannah was unstable, overworked, and now involving strange men in their granddaughter's life. Hannah was blindsided. Wesley didn't hesitate. He called in his legal team, pulling strings he hadn't touched in years. But the courtroom wasn't about contracts, it was about hearts. On the final day, the judge allowed Lily to speak. Standing on a wooden box, holding her drawing of the pancake family, she declared, "I already have a daddy. He's not the same kind you're born with, but he loves me anyway." The courtroom held its breath. Even the judge blinked back emotion. Wesley watched, stunned, as this little girl fought for their bond. He had no words, just tears. The court ruled in Hannah's favor, acknowledging the stability, love, and care Lily already had. As they left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Wesley shielded Lily with his coat. Hannah grabbed his hand. And in that moment, the three of them, so different, so broken, walked out as something new, not by law, but by love. The courthouse steps had never felt so heavy. Cameras flashed, questions flew. But all Wesley saw was Lily, clutching her drawing, smiling up at him with complete trust. He lifted her into his arms and looked at Hannah, who was wiping tears from her cheek. "You didn't have to fight for us," she said quietly. "I wasn't just fighting for you," he answered. "I was fighting for me too." That night they sat together on the porch of Hannah's small home. Lily fell asleep curled up on Wesley's lap, and the world seemed to slow down around them. The breeze was gentle, the stars were beginning to appear. "I've been alone a long time," Hannah said softly. "So have I," Wesley replied, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. There was no grand declaration, no kiss, just two people sitting in shared silence, closer than ever before, and in that silence a family was taking root, not through legal documents or bloodlines, but through choice, effort, and something quietly growing between them: trust. It was a simple dinner: spaghetti, garlic bread, and laughter, but it felt like something more. Wesley had offered to cook. He showed up with groceries, wearing a checkered apron Lily had picked out from the thrift store. "Chef Wesley at your service," he announced with a mock bow. The pasta was overcooked, the sauce slightly burnt, and the garlic bread nearly set off the fire alarm. But none of it mattered. Lily, with tomato sauce on her cheeks, made a toast with her apple juice. "To my new old daddy." Wesley nearly dropped his fork. Hannah reached for his hand under the table. After dinner, they danced in the living room to soft jazz from the record player. Hannah laughed as Wesley stumbled through the steps, Lily spinning in circles around them. For the first time in years, the walls of that little house echoed with joy. As Wesley washed the dishes, Hannah leaned against the doorway and watched him quietly. He belonged here, not just for dinner, not just for Lily, but for all the tomorrows they hadn't dared to hope for. This wasn't just a night, it was the beginning of something real. Not every day was perfect. Wesley didn't know how to braid hair. He forgot school pickup once and arrived an hour late, frantic. He mistook baking soda for flour during a cookie attempt, and one Saturday he lost Lily in the grocery store for 5 terrifying minutes. He wasn't used to the messiness of life with a child, or the vulnerability of caring. And Hannah, she was scared too. Scared of letting herself love a man who could leave, scared of trusting someone again. They argued once, about something small like bills or bedtime, but it felt bigger than it was. "I'm not good at this," Wesley admitted one night. Hannah sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Neither am I, but they kept trying." Trying was new for both of them. Lily noticed. She drew a picture labeled "Our Team." It was the three of them with capes. Wesley framed it and hung it in his office. Because even when things went wrong, even when fear crept in, they always came back to each other. And that was what made them a team. It was a chilly spring evening when it finally happened. They were walking Lily's little rescue dog through the park. The sky was streaked with violet and gold. Wesley held Lily's leash while she ran ahead. Hannah wore a soft gray sweater, her hair down for once, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. "I love her," he said, almost to himself. Hannah looked up. "Of course, she's easy to love." He stopped walking. "No, I mean I love Lily, and I think I love you too." She froze. He looked away, heart thudding. "I know it's fast. I know it's messy, but I haven't felt like this since before I lost them." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer, her voice shaky. "I've been so scared to start again, but maybe we don't have to start. Maybe we just keep going." He nodded. They didn't kiss, not yet. They just stood there in the fading light, two souls admitting something beautiful and terrifying. They were falling in love together. The house was filled with cinnamon, laughter, and the chaos of holiday cheer. Lily had taken charge of decorating the tree, and Wesley, once the man who had avoided holidays at all costs, was now knee-deep in tangled lights and glittery ornaments. Their tree leaned to one side, the angel on top kept falling, and the gingerbread house collapsed twice. But it was perfect. On Christmas morning they opened presents in pajamas. Lily squealed over her science kit. Wesley handed Hannah a small box. Inside was a ring, not flashy but simple, elegant. "It's not an engagement ring," he said quickly. "It's a promise. I'm not going anywhere." Hannah's eyes glistened. "I believe you," she whispered. Lily handed him a homemade mug. It said, "Best almost Dad." Wesley stared at it for a long moment before pulling her into a hug. "Best gift I've ever gotten." They didn't need snow or matching sweaters. They had each other. And for the first time in years, Wesley didn't dread December. He welcomed it because it meant family. It was after Lily's spring play. She'd played a dancing flower and taken her role very seriously. Wesley had brought roses and stood front row, clapping louder than anyone. Afterward, as the auditorium emptied, Wesley pulled Hannah aside. His hands trembled as he reached into his coat pocket. "I know this isn't how it's usually done," he said. "No fireworks, no candlelit dinner. But I can't imagine another day going by without you knowing this." He knelt. Hannah's eyes widened as Lily gasped from a few feet away. "I've loved you for a while now," he said. "You and Lily, you gave me back my life, let me give you mine." Hannah choked back a sob. "You're crazy," she whispered. He smiled. "A little." She didn't wait for him to finish the sentence. She dropped to her knees beside him and said the one word he hadn't dared to hope for. "Yes." Lily clapped from behind them. "Can I be the flower girl again, but like for real this time?" Wesley pulled them both into a hug. He had found his home in them. Their wedding wasn't grand, but it was unforgettable. It took place in a quiet park under the same oak tree where Wesley had first told Hannah he loved her. The sun was warm, the sky a perfect canvas of blue, and soft music played from a speaker Lily had decorated with paper hearts. Hannah wore a simple white dress, barefoot in the grass, a flower crown in her curls. Wesley looked at her like she was the only person in the world. But it was Lily who stole the show, walking her mom down the aisle, grinning from ear to ear. They exchanged vows with tears in their eyes. "I thought my life was over," Wesley said. "Then a little girl asked me to be her dad. I never thought I'd trust again," Hannah replied. "But you showed me that love can find us even in the rubble." They didn't just vow to each other, but to Lily too. "You're the glue that held us together," Wesley said to her, kneeling. "We're a family now because of you." The guests cried. Even the officiant needed a tissue. And when Wesley kissed Hannah, it wasn't just the end of a ceremony, it was the beginning of everything. A few weeks after the wedding, they returned to the courthouse, not for custody this time, but for celebration. They had decided together that Lily should choose her name. She stood before the judge, proud in her pink dress and sparkly shoes, holding a piece of paper where she had written her full name in crayon. "Lily Parker Grant." The judge smiled down at her. "Why do you want to change your name, sweetheart?" Lily adjusted her glasses and said with confidence, "Because now it matches my heart." The room melted. Wesley blinked back tears. Hannah reached for his hand. It was official. The paperwork didn't make them a family, love did. But this moment made it real. They celebrated afterward, with ice cream and dancing in the kitchen. Wesley lifted Lily high into the air while she squealed, "I'm a Grant now." He looked at Hannah across the room. They hadn't just built a life, they'd built a legacy. Life became louder, messier, and infinitely more beautiful. Saturday mornings meant pancake batter on the ceiling and Lily bouncing on their bed at 6 a.m. Weeknights included homework help, tickle fights, and Wesley burning dinner while pretending he knew how to make lasagna. He gave up late-night meetings and started working from home more often. Hannah returned to nursing part-time, and they juggled schedules like a well-practiced team. Lily called him Dad naturally now, without hesitation, without doubt. And when she had nightmares, it was Wesley she ran to. They decorated the house together. Photos now hung on the walls, laughter echoed through the rooms, and love filled every corner. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for Wesley, a man who once lived in silence and sorrow, the noise was a gift. Every slam of a door, every mom he burned it again. All reminders that he was alive and loved, that he wasn't alone anymore. He was a father, a husband, a man reborn. Years passed and time softened the edges of their once fractured past. On a warm spring afternoon, Lily, now taller, wiser, and still wearing mismatched socks, stood at a school podium delivering a speech titled, "What Family Means." In the crowd, Wesley and Hannah sat side by side, hands clasped, hearts full. "Family isn't always who you start with," Lily said confidently. "Sometimes it's the people who show up, the ones who stay, who fight for you, and love you, even if they didn't have to." Wesley couldn't breathe. His eyes blurred as Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder. Lily smiled at them from the stage. "They didn't have to love me, but they did, and now I'll love them forever." The audience erupted in applause. Later that night, as they sat around the dinner table, now scratched and worn from years of use, Wesley raised his glass. "To second chances," he said. Lily chimed in, "To chosen families," and Hannah whispered, "To love finding us even when we've stopped looking." Because sometimes the most beautiful stories don't begin with fairy tales. They begin with a question from a little girl: "Can you be my dad today?" If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of second chances, subscribe now. More stories like this, stories of love, healing, and unexpected families, are waiting to be told.